Hello, everybody, and thank you very much. First, the usual congrats. And secondly, thank you very much for having the opportunity to talk about a topic that is very dear to me. It's an uncomfortable topic because it's not the usual business plan and the things, innovation here and there, because it is the most serious one. So whenever there has been a serious topic, then it is the European sovereignty. And I'm talking about it having come back from a 1 week in Ukraine, in Kiev. And I think we have to dive into it to see what it means. It's not a theoretical concept. So you see how people that were like we, that had a job, suddenly are drawn together for one single thing because somebody is threatening to take away your Heimat, to take away your friends, your home, everything that is dear to you. And that creates very much power. So the most impressive situation I had was I met a lady, 23 years old, from rural Ukraine. She managed to get to the US top university. And then she managed to get the job of her dreams with Morgan Stanley in M&A. And half a year later, she was paramedic at the front line. So think about it. So the problems of a big part of our youth is managing your social media profile or get the same color handbag and shoes. And those people there, for them it is all about substance. So this is why it is a little bit about a reality check. What do we have here? We need to transport this message, how serious this situation is. But before I get into the details, let me a little bit calibrate. So is it a war, Ukraine against Russia? No. We are, as uncomfortable as this is, it's a war between the US and China. All the wars that we are seeing are proxy wars. So whether it is Ukraine, or whether it's Hamas-Israel, whether it's Iran-Israel, or whether it's Venezuela and Guyana. So what is at stake? Why are they fighting, and how do we fit into that picture? So the one thing is that some part of the world does not want to accept that the US dollar is the reserve currency. So India, China, and Russia have already trade currencies with rupees and with yuans. The next thing, which as a consequence, is China's colonialism 2.0. So it normally happens easily in Africa or Sri Lanka, where somebody needs a port, then they don't have the money, China lends them the money, and then they can't pay back, so China takes the port. And then you have all this kind of dependencies. And as a consequence of that, multilateralism is dead. So WHO, WTO don't work. And the United Nations are also a little bit at stake because Russia uses their power to make the dependent states vote in their favor. So this is what we have seen. So that's the progression where it goes is a very natural thing. So we do friendshoring in supply chains. We do homeshoring, nearshoring. And there was one hypothesis which I found very interesting, why China was supporting Russia in the fight against Ukraine. And that is that because of this multilateralism, of these dynamics, everything is about self-sustainability. And most of the big blocs have a self-sustainability in most instances, as China as well, except for food. And Ukraine, with its corn, can feed 400 million people. So this is the overarching theme why China has an interest to support the Russians on it. So what does that mean for us? It's not our war. So we are just drawn into a proxy war. And so we are still a little bit like like an eunuch there. We are without own power, we are without own strategy. So if you think about it, the US has a 30 trillion GDP. China, $18 trillion in power parity, price power parity, 37. And Europe, with 450 million people, 20 billion nominal GDP, 28 in purchase power parity. So we are basically at level par, but still we do not have the same political power. So this is something which I think we do need to seriously think about it. We do need to have a very, very stringent industry policy as a Europe. We do need to have a defense policy combined. And what I'm really lacking is the will, the political will to identify relevant industries which have sovereignty impacts. That's how I got to this whole defense topic, because I was financing ESA Aerospace, and then I was seeing like, Jesus, yeah, with Ariane, we sold 100% of the transport capacity for 6 years to Amazon. Europe is not in a position to launch an own satellite for the next 6 years. And that at the most dynamic market that there is. So we do need willing politicians that get there. So this is a little bit, and look, I mean, this illusion has a little bit faded away after Altmaier and Habeck, yeah, that there is the will to do industry policy. Also the topic of AI, I don't want to stress it again, because everybody is talking about it. The only thing that I want to stress here is, how should we look at AI? And for me, and probably for a lot of people, there's a common denominator that AI is the single biggest reason for productivity in our economies in Europe. But with the money that the US invests in AI, the price and the scaling of a single request on there is so low that we cannot match it. As a consequence, that means that the US with these kind of AI models has the control over the single biggest enhancement of productivity in the European economy. This is a crazy dependence. And I think this is a level which we should look at it, and which we also do need to make the political consequences here. So the other thing is, we do need to think about very differently about financing. So we do have a continental European, at least continental European financial illiteracy, and we need to be very, very strong and decisive and go for quality. So in 2019, I remember I had the first keynote where I said Cold War 2.0. So and from then on, I was very much focusing on identifying the relevant technologies here and go after them. And we do need to, and I want to make one point, what we need very, very without compromises is very, very strong VC, entrepreneurial VCs with very big checks. And that's not do it some chest beating, but that is the competition. Every cool entrepreneur in defense has offers from top US VCs with 100 million check or more. So it's nor the cool VC alone without the big checks, nor the big check without the cool VC is sufficient to keep these companies here. So on an unusual move, I'm willing to let myself measure on these quality things. So with Lakestar, we have 3 companies in our history which went close to 100 billion valuation, and 7 that went above 10 billion valuation. Yeah? And if you go only on the defense side of things, yeah, so since I started with this exercise, we have been building up a big portfolio with over 700 million NAV, which is not known because I normally don't talk about it. And we had some slight successes with the companies over there. So why I'm stressing this? As said, we do need to hunt for the quality, and we do need to have the big checks. So that's why I'm saying, I said with FT, that I will put, if necessary, and that's what I believe, a 9-digit sum of my own money into these kind of businesses. Why? Because it's absolutely lousy what we have. And I run you through the facts now. So we see IRIS-2 should have been an answer, but it was too long, it was 2 billion too expensive, and that's why Italy falls for Musk. So it's an open secret. even the NATO says we cannot defend ourselves. Germany has an ammunition for 4 days, France for 5 days, and the UK for 4 days. So after a week, we would be throwing stones back. So, and now let me give you an overview. What does it mean in terms of real substance here? So, this is what people invest. But it is purchase power parity. That's very important. Because a lot of people say, yeah, Russia has the economic power of Spain, so how can it be dangerous to us? It can, because they're not spending 60% of their budgets on salaries and pensions. And that's why they can invest in materials. And we can't barely do this. You see how that the spending of Russia on defense stuff is more than the entire NATO EU spending. So we do have 30% less people and less spending than we had in 1992. And think about it, we had 18,000 tanks, and now we have 3,000. We had 3,600 fighter jets, and now we have 1,000 that are working. So this is the ugly truth. And I'm stressing this here because I want you to understand a little bit that it is not a luxury problem. So it's something we need to solve. And if the politicians, we want them to put money into this market, then they need to have the feeling that the electorate appreciates this. And they can only appreciate it when they feel the sense of urgency here. So now I have my favorite chart is this one. This chart shows 3 circles. The top right is economies at war. They spend 5 to 8% of GDP in defense. Then on the left hand, you have in peacetime, you spend 1.2 to 1.5%. Then don't dilute yourself. So we were really bad actors. We only spent 1.5%, but 60% of that was, as said, salaries and pensions. So basically, we chickened out of our responsibility. The middle one, however, is interesting. In times of threat, people spend 3.5% on GDP in defense countries. And we have done that for 15, 20 years. So going back, nobody can say, oh, that's a crazy achievement. This is just mimicking something we have been doing for 20 years, at least. So this is an obvious one. The further you are away from the east flank, the less you are inclined to spend money on defense. The Portuguese say, before I'm in danger, they have to be rolling through Germany, France, and Spain. If that's just as anecdotal, going back to the 3.5%. If we did 3.5%, it would be like 90 billion more for Germany alone. Yeah? And then I was thinking like, okay, what do I get for it? How complex is this kind of price? Yeah? So if we did that, we would rank up in the global scale to something like the 5th or 6th place, which by means of GDP population we need to be. And it is very important we do this. It's not a facultative thing, because as you see here, all our European peers are not in a position to do it because they are so indebted in comparison to the Maastricht criteria that Germany is the only one who has some maneuvering room, some wiggle room. So the others are basically at the end of their capacity here. So the next thing is, why do I think it is a good thing to get into investing into the technology? Because if we ramp up, we cannot buy the old stuff. Because a ship takes 15 years, a tank takes another 10 years. So there is no way to ammunition us fast track. It takes time, except for tech. Tech is fast. The drones are there. It's way easier to do that. And the second reason why it is good to go into it, because they are efficient. So with a €1,000 drone, you can kill a 10 million tank. So with a small drone, you can go, it's more efficient than a fighter jet. This asymmetry is crazy because currently we are not prepared to answer, as of air defense, cheap drones. we were shooting 250,000 Patriots against the 25,000 Lachette, which doesn't make any sense. So this is the most efficient way to place it. So it means out of the hundreds of billions that will go into it, a lot has to go into defense, right? And when you think about that, that is where also, how does it go into defense? So the US has like 14% of their budget is, the defense budget is innovation, which is something like 94 billion. In Europe's only 4%. So the Europeans do not have their own innovation in defense, so they're reliant on a cooperation with VCs, because we are the only ones who can fast-track that. And that's an interesting one. These investments historically in the US in defense have had a lot of spillover effects. Here you see which state programs for defense investing have contributed with their innovation to the iPod or the iPhone. So this is something which is important later on, because you have so many trickle-over effects that the entire economy will hugely profit from it. So here are the different programs. So why am I saying that? To make a very, very complex thing very easy. Currently, we cannot defend ourselves, and we are 63% indebted to GDP in Germany. If we put up this 100 billion, we could defend ourselves, and we would be indebted with 68%. So if everybody had to poll for that, I think it's a very, very simple question, because it goes. The question, the Heimat is at stake, our home, our families, for 5% additional level of indebted. So what does it mean for investors? So if we think we go to 3.5%, then, and 10% of this goes into technology, at a 4 times revenue multiple, we are talking about 250 billion market cap every year for the next 10 years. This is the price. And this is why I started in 2019 to hunt this topic, why I doubled down with the chairmanship of the NATO Innovation Fund. That's why I doubled down as a board membership in the Munich Security Conference, because not only is it's an emotionally and societal rewarding task that we need to do, it is in excess of that also an economic task that we should pursue. And this is also something that the NATO Admiral Bauer has stressed lately. So all in all, I, of course, have bought defense.eu as a URL. So there, if you want to register there is a very, very big, very detailed report that I did together with McKinsey. So you will have all the details on the quantitative side, how we should look at the defense space. And with that, thank you very much.